Connecticut's Back to School Authority is sponsored by Yale New Haven Children's Hospital, one of the best in the nation.
Well, it is Connecticut Tax-Free Week, and for many people, that means back-to-school shopping. Channel 3's Caitlin Francis has a look at what you might want to add to your list this year to make sure your child stays safe in class.
What do you recommend? What are those top things that you think should be on those back-to-school lists this year?
Yeah, so the list may look a little bit different than previous years because of what's going on. And I think in thinking about the list, it's also important to kind of get your kids ready for the fact that things are going to look a little bit different this year.
Pediatric infectious disease specialist at Yale New Haven Hospital, Dr. Thomas Murray, says kids should have hand sanitizer, extra cloth masks, and disinfecting wipes.
When you think back to school, I always thought about crayons and binders and markers and pencils and those kinds of things that you would get excited to go back to the store to pick up. How does that all work? Because I'm assuming that sharing's not necessarily a thing this year.
Yeah, and I think that's the key. I think the key is to make sure that you get supplies that are just for your child and that they're not shared, and that the only kinds of things that should be shared are things that have very hard surfaces that can be wiped down effectively between use with different children. So
he says this is especially important in a preschool setting where kids don't always know better. He recommends toys that are easy to wipe down between use, so ditch anything cloth, just in case kids do share.
I think it's not ideal, but it's often very difficult in that age group, for sure. So in that situation, if you can clean the toys and get the children to wash their hands with soap and water if they're too young for hand sanitizers, that's a reasonable approach to allow those kids to have some interaction.
Another area Dr. Murray suggests adding to the school supply list: lunch. Reusable water bottles will be a must this year without water fountains functioning, and find containers kids can open without a ton of help.
I mean, there are going to be situations with younger children where teachers or caregivers, providers in the school are going to need to interact with the kids in fairly close contact. And for those situations, that's where it's important that prior to eating, if something has to be opened, both the teacher and the student have a mask on, because within close contact, if both are wearing masks and both are truly asymptomatic, that's about as low a risk as you can accomplish at this stage of the game.
He says thankfully the state is in a good place to be sending students back into schools. I'm Caitlin Francis, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.